Hello, Be Awesome listeners. You are with me for episode 7 of the podcast series. I'm back under the peach tree. Excited to be home. It's been a crazy couple of months out and about. A couple of updates real quick. For those of you that bought t-shirts, thank you very much. You haven't received them yet, and we know, and I've started to send some notes out to folks who are just waiting on some orders, and shirts are something brand new to me. We're also working through some of the back end stuff to make sure that we were doing the right things with donations. We've decided, working with Santa, that we're going to give $3 of every shirt from now until Thanksgiving to the Fairbanks Youth Advocates Group, which helps provide everything from meals to a place to stay, clothes for kids 12 to 18 in the Fairbanks area of Alaska. So then there's quite a few up there. So looking forward to hopefully getting some good donation up to them for just in time for the holidays. I've been lately having guests on my show, and it's been very well received. The reason behind the guests is timing. A lot is when people are available and when people come into thoughts of ideas and trying to align everything. And today's no exception. I have a guest with me here today, but just kind of a reminder. A good friend had reminded me to just kind of keep where we're going with all of this. What we're trying to do with Be Awesome is a couple-fold. Remind us about our attitude. Making sure that we're doing the best that we can to keep a positive attitude. And some of the folks that I bring in, or the discussions that I have are examples, ideas, real life stories of positive attitude and mindset. The next would be awareness, being aware that everybody has a story and trying to not necessarily understand every story, but just being aware and trying to adjust, making sure that we're not getting upset with people just because they seem to be having a bad day and taking out on them. Maybe try to think and say they must have something going on, and try to be a little bit more alert and aware of the things going on around you and why people might think about that. And just the stories and the ideas and the things behind it should all kind of tie into that. And if I'm not doing that for some reason, let me know, because that's what we want to do. We want to try to get it this kind of ongoing work of practice of making sure that our mind's right and that we're doing the right things and looking out for folks around us and being aware. And that's kind of what this is all about. And I've kind of had a smorgasbord of people and ideas and things around this podcast, and just want to make sure everybody's kind of in the mindset of knowing that. So today, without exception, I have a great guest with me, longtime friend of mine. His name is Paul Anastasi. First, welcome, Paul. Thanks for coming out and hanging out under the peach tree.
Oh, thanks for having me, Josh. It's I'm flattered to be here under the tree with you, the first guest under the peach tree, and to actually meet Steve in person. Coming up the driveway, Steve and I had a quick agreement. I said, Steve, don't start with me, and everything will go just fine, and he's kept his word.
Yeah, so far so good, but the podcast is early. A little history with Paul. He and I met in 2004. As a matter of fact, I found a bunch of my original proposals I had written for an event that we had at his school in Newton Public Schools. He's a director of custodial services and operations for Newton Public Schools in the city of Newton, Massachusetts. And I started out as a client, and just a guy I didn't know, person that I sold software to. And over the course of time, realized that Paul was really a pretty special human being. I can remember one of the first things that happened in 2005, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong on relations and things, but it was 2005. We have an annual conference for the dude in Myrtle Beach. I think it was a nephew or a cousin had passed.
One of my aunts, actually.
Oh, one of your aunts. Okay.
Yep.
One of your aunts had passed just a couple days prior to you supposed to head down, and you'd called and said, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it down for the services and everything that was happening, and we worked and we changed your flights to Wilmington, which if you've ever been to Wilmington, North Carolina airport, you can visualize this, but it's literally one of the few airports that has the gate agent, the ticket person, the baggage handler, and the person that moves the jetway, all the same person. It's literally a one person show, and they have rocking chairs for a reason, because you're going to be waiting a while for your bags.
It's about the size of your property here, Josh.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's amazing. They land planes there and whatnot. And so I drove up and picked you up, and we had a nice ride back. And then we didn't have, we being a startup, we still run very lean, but we ran really, really lean. And I wanted to do an appreciation thing for our clients that came down. So instead of taking people out and spending money and doing all that, we had a party at our condo. And my buddy Greg got us a keg, and we had a impromptu keg party, which there was a bit left over. And far be it from me, the next day, at the end of the classes and everything, we drove by our condo, and we said, "Who's that man on deck?" And that was Paul. And he was, from 2005 on, he's always been a guy that's always been there. He's been someone that's been a great guide in a lot of situations. He's been there and done that. But one of the most incredible things is his attitude has always struck me as something awesome. And I'm going to butcher this story as well, and I want you to fill me in because it's been so long. But I can remember one of the first presentations you ever gave, and it was a PowerPoint, and it was a picture, and it had a canoe sticking out of the dumpster. And I can just remember, going, where the hell is this guy going with this? And you were telling the story, and you had the entire room laughing, but there was a message behind it, which was professionalism, which was, telling people, being very descriptive in instructions and what to do and what not to do. Do you remember the canoe in the?
Oh, absolutely. For those who don't have the video, we're here just doing audio. The picture is a typical schoolyard dumpster. It's a 5-yard dumpster with the slanted front. Everyone had them in their schoolyards. And I went to one of my elementary schools one day and to check. It was summertime, and I went to check on progress for summer cleaning. And the dumpster is probably 6 feet from corner to corner, if I had to guess at a dimension. And the canoe was 17 feet. And it was in the dumpster. So that means there was 11 feet of the canoe sticking out of the dumpster, more than half. And it was right next to the custodian door, where the custodians enter the building. And when I went inside, I asked the custodian how his day was going, and everything was great. He said, we're having a good day. We're moving right along. The schedule's going as we planned. And I said, but, what about the canoe? And he said, what canoe? I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, but you parked your car in the lot there and walked by the dumpster that's only 6 feet, and it has a 17-foot canoe in it. You didn't notice that? He said, no, I didn't. And I said, come on, let's go outside. Because he was looking at me like I was crazy. So we go outside, and he says, oh, that canoe. He said, the kids in the neighborhood must have put it in there over the weekend. And they obviously did. But as you know, Josh, when I do any of my speaking engagements, I try and get people's attention at the beginning. I do something right off the bat to get their attention. So I would use that picture of the canoe anytime I was training my custodians or off-training custodians from other communities. And the title underneath said, "Don't let this happen to you." So it was just a little get your picture, and I used that as I moved through in a lot of my trainings just to get people's attention at the beginning.
Yeah, and you do a great job of getting people's attention. As a matter of fact, you and Kenny did a great presentation in Gillette Stadium for 50 or 60 folks, where the setup is that you are a disgruntled, if you will, disgruntled attendee of the speaking session, and it's all planned and choreographed between you and Ken, and you stand up and get frustrated, and then you walk out and you kind of come back in to tie all the pieces together, and you did such a convincing get your attention moment that security actually wouldn't let you back in to finish the presentation, thinking that you were truly a disgruntled attendee and that you were going to cause physical harm. Arguably one of the best presentations that I got to watch and have a laugh at, because the guy that wouldn't let you back in was enormous. I mean, just a cement. It looked like he was one of the linemen for the Patriots. So you definitely do have the gotcha moments.
And that was interesting because Kenny and I we've done this presentation a few times where he plays the dressed up facilities manager and I come in as the disgruntled custodian. He's talking about contracted cleaning and I'm talking about keeping cleaning in house with town-based custodians and things like that. We show both sides of the subject because it's a tough subject when communities have to cut corners and look at saving money and custodial staff and things like that. So I come in reading the newspaper with my hat on backwards, and I wear a T-shirt that says the Master of the Custodial Arts with a skull and cross mops. And someone forgot to tell the monitor in that room from the organization that I was part of the show. And when he came up to me, he took me by the arm, and he was a big dude. Later on, finding out he was a former Marine, and he said, "Come on, sir, you have to go." And I'm thinking to myself, wow, that Kenny thought of everything. I said, this is great for the show. And Kenny saying, boy, that Paul thought of everything. He had this guy come in and take him out. And I'm saying, Kenny had this guy come in and take... And the two of us were going back and forth in our heads without saying anything to each other. And finally, he muscled me out of the room. And I got outside and I had a good laugh. And I said to him, that was great. I said, Kenny put you up to that. And he said, I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, no, really. I said, you can let it down now. We're out of the room. I said, Kenny told you to take me out. I said, now I got to go back. He said, no, you can't go back in that room. He said, you're just messing up his whole talk. I said, no, I'm part of the show. And in my newspaper that I bring in the show, the PowerPoint slides stapled inside the newspaper so I can follow along to see where I'm supposed to come in and what my next part is. And I was showing him the newspaper, and he said, I'm about to call Gillette Stadium security if you don't leave the area right now. And at that point, I realized he was serious because he had that look, and he still had me by the arm. So I took out my wallet. I went to the last slide where we introduce ourselves and show our contact information, and I showed him my license and that last slide and said, I'm trying to tell you that I'm supposed to be in there. This is my part in this talk. And he kind of looked up at me, got a little red in the face, and said, I am so sorry, sir. And I went back into the room, and Kenny had a big smile, and everybody in the room laughed. And later on, we had a good laugh about it, and we sat with the gentleman, and it was all good in the end, but he took it serious. I guess I played the part a little too well.
Yeah, no, you played it really well. I enjoyed it, and I had seen it a couple times, and it seemed a little more serious than in times past. Talking about these couple of stories, Paul, and the history that you and I have, and we've had countless times together that we have spent, Marathon Mondays, where we were at my friend's bar there at the finish line, and the boot, the random boot that was on the dance floor, and Captain Morgan, where I think we came up with some nicknames for you, the Pirate, and the times that we've had at professional developments and networking events and just personal time that we've had to spend together. I think the common message here is that you've probably had a million bad days, or tough days, or difficult days. You had a difficult.
Everyone does.
Yeah, you had a difficult career. Custodians, they have a hard job. They have a very difficult, oftentimes thankless job. They're typically the fabric that keeps communities together in a lot of ways that people don't even recognize. But they can be a lot of work. There's a lot of oversight of things to do. You had how big was your team in Newton?
90 custodians in 23 buildings.
Yeah, so that's just astronomical. You had a showcased high school built there that was nationally recognized. What was it? A couple 100,000 square feet.
410,000 square feet. It cost $200 million to build. The most expensive high school built in the state of Massachusetts.
That's pretty strong oversight that you have there, and probably a significant amount of stress. And I've never seen you sweat. What's your story? What's the?
I guess like a lot of people, it goes back to my dad. He's someone that always said he used those statements. Actually, it was a commercial back then for a deodorant that they used to say, don't let them see you sweat. And he always said that to me. He said, keep a strong, straight front, no matter how much is crumbling behind you. And my dad, he was from a large family. He was number 10 in a family of 11. My grandfather was a tough old coot, Sicilian, came over on the boat, ruled with an iron fist. But my dad, because he was at the youngest and surrounded by a couple of women, his sisters, they softened him and coddled him, and they made him the soft side. But he also had the tough side that my grandfather, pushed into all of his boys. They had to work, and they had to work hard. And Dad passed that on to us and said, work hard, and the rest will all fall into place. But he always said, be part of the solution too. It's okay to go in and sit across from a board of directors or sit across from people and voice your opinion. I remember going into a youth hockey meeting because I was crazed that my 8-year-old son his team had to share a sheet of ice with another team, and bitching and moaning to that board about being unhappy, and then turning around hours later and saying, now what can I do to help? What can I do to make that better? And shortly after, I was on the board of directors for Watertown Youth Hockey. 2 years later, I was the vice president. I coached for years, but that came from my father. He said, you know what, 96% of the time, when you're bitching at someone across the table on the phone, it's not personal. They're giving the message that they were told to give to you. Most people are following a script. Their supervisor told them to say something. Their board told them that this is the stance we're going to take, even if they don't agree with it. And it's not personal. But he also told me that for that 4%, if it gets personal, lead with your left because they'll never see your right coming. So I got both sides. I got the tough side and I got the soft side from my dad, and that's where most of it came from. But just keep you cool, keep calm, and don't take it personal.
That's great advice, and I'm glad I've never seen the left. We'll explain. I've probably seen a combination of both shortly here, but that's great advice, and I think that you've executed very well with over the years. You've just been instrumental in the state of Massachusetts, but you've also been instrumental in your family. You've been able to, and there's a lot of debate with people that say, not to use the word work-life balance, but you've done different ways to say it or different things to say it or how you do it. But I think you've done something that very few people today do, which is you've been able to truly make sure that all the bases are covered all around. I think you've done from everything that I can see, you've done an incredible job in raising your kids, spending family time, being a grandfather now, being recently retired, enjoying some of the fruits of your labor. But when it came down to work, you were always there, not just for Newton, you were there for all the other schools, serving on boards and committees, speaking nationally. Even now, as you're retired, you're going out. You guys went out to where have you been this year? You've been to Ohio. You've been to.
We've been up to Maine. We're booked to go out to Michigan soon. We've actually, Kenny and I have been on a whirlwind tour, not as much as you, of course, but we have done our speaking tour, South Carolina, North Carolina, out to San Diego. Came down and spoke to the dudes at the intergalactic headquarters, which was a great trip. So we put some miles under our sneakers to get around and preach the word of our facilities and how we can help schools and students, because in the end what we do is all for the students. I think the best day of the school year is graduation day, to watch in Newton 600 kids graduate, and those kids probably gave you some pains along the way. They broke some windows, they messed up a cafeteria, and they did that, but on graduation day it's all smiles, and that's what makes it all worthwhile, to see them graduate.
And you know them all. You guys, it's amazing how you almost make them your kids through those years, and for a lot of cases, you watch them from first grade through 12th grade, and watch them grow, and then that's that big day to watch them head out. And it's amazing because, when you said you were going to retire, and I think I said that, made the comment of like, that won't last. I feel like you're busier now being retired than you were than you were working. And I'm excited because I'm going to get you on the Whirlwind Tour. Kenny and I were talking. We're going to get you to come along with me for a week one of these times and do a Whirlwind Tour. We got to figure out something that's going to be pretty active, maybe a coast to coast or something to make it fun.
Well, I'm ready. I'm always ready to like you said. I'm not ready to sit on the beach and fish every day.
Yeah.
I will do that some days, but I still am young enough and have enough energy. I thought Steve and I had an agreement here, but he's not owning up to his side. But I'm still young enough and have enough energy to continue helping different communities. I'm working in the community of Northbridge now, transitioning a new facilities manager there. I helped in Newton after I retired to bring on my replacement and get him up to speed, and then working with the MFAA and Kenny and Brian and all the great folks that run that organization. We've done custodial trainings and out to Northampton, and we went from Northampton to Maine to speak, and I really enjoy it because I still have a purpose, and it's still helping the kids and the schools and the communities that make it all worthwhile.
And you're sharing that smile, which is ever important. I'm going to transition this to a personal story, and share with you guys the reason why I asked Paul to be here for you was in the things that you just heard. The reason why I'm asking Paul to be here for me is to share this story with the world, which has been shared with a number of folks over the last 18 plus months. In the first podcast, I told you a little bit about my family, and I've definitely gotten a couple of messages and funny comments about, man, it took you a while to go from having an 11-year-old to a now 8-month-old, which is true. We've got an 11-month-old or 11-year-old and an 8-month-old, but it wasn't from a lack of effort or a lack of want or wanting to have more kids. It just wasn't in the cards for us. And we gave up. We gave up last January. Amy and I were in Mexico in January 17, and I may have said this in the first episode, but we were sitting on the beach, and we just kind of looked at each other and said, natural having a child of our own naturally is doesn't look positive. Doctors gave us kind of two chances, a fat chance and no chance, and adoption was really difficult for us. We were having no luck and coming up with dead ends there, and causing stress and frustration in it all to add to that. And so we gave up in January, and on March 13th of 2017, Monday morning, I woke up. I was in Atlantic City. I did a full day of certification classes, stand on my feet, and then delivered a keynote, and the executive director, who's a friend, had a opening trade show session and said, hey, come on down. And so we walked down there and walked in, and I just love I love everybody that I get to interact with. The New Jersey guys they're just phenomenal. They get an incredible, huge group. They're always just shaking hands and hugging and happy to see you and very welcoming. So we're walking around, people shaking our hands and saying hello, and Paul was with me. And some of the stuff's a little fuzzy, but I got a beer somehow. I remember sipping on a beer, and then I got a sandwich from this nice woman. And I remember taking the first bite of the sandwich and going, man, this is the tastiest sandwich I think I've ever eaten. I hadn't eaten really anything of any substance since the night before. I went probably 18 hours without really having a meal, and took the second bite. We were talking. I don't remember exactly what I did or how I did it, and I don't necessarily need to go into details of it because it's something I try every day to forget. But I blacked out. I was choking on the food. I stopped breathing. I from what I've been told, I didn't really do the typical signs of grabbing my neck and doing all the things that people do when they're choking. I apparently took a sip of beer, I think, right?
Yep.
Tried to force it down with that, and that failed. And at some point, with all these people around, there was only one person, and I was lights out at one point because I don't recall anything. But there was one person in that entire building that I had put my life's my life's hands in, and he's sitting across from me, and without second guessing, thinking, doing anything, he proceeded to perform the Heimlich maneuver on me multiple times, because one time just ain't gonna cut it with me, cracking ribs and doing everything that needed to be done. I can't go to Atlantic City without getting some ribs cracked. So this was actually the second time that happened, but he brought me back to life. I don't think that there's a day that goes by that I don't believe that I would have died that day, even though there were a lot of people there, and I'm sure people would have tried. I'm a big guy. I'm like 260 pounds. Paul is quite a bit smaller, and he gave everything he got because he knew me, because he's just Paul. And he saved my life, and I'm forever grateful for it. And that's the next piece of that is I was supposed to be down there until Thursday. I was supposed to be there for 4 more days. I was freaked out. I was embarrassed. I was also just emotionally a mess, and I opted to drive home. And
That was a good decision.
well, yeah, I signed that. I signed all that
Signed the
paperwork. I
release
signed
from
the
the
release from the
ambulance.
ambulance that said I accept death, which was an interesting certificate I have on my wall. But I drove through the night because I wanted to tell Amy in person and share with her kind of what was going on and how it was going, or how it had gone on. And so I drove home that night, got home in the middle of the night, told her, talked to her, went through everything. Was kind of in a daze or a fog, if you will. And she said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Nothing. I'm going to take the next couple of days and just realize that I'm here and happy and try to figure stuff out." And 2 days later, Chance was conceived. So I guess I wasn't doing nothing. I was doing nothing to a point. But here we are today, with a beautiful baby boy. I'm here. I avoided my first death date, and you saved my life, and did it in supreme fashion without missing a beat. And I know that had to be emotionally draining on you, and probably something you still.
I think about it all the time, and I was on the good side. I was breathing through it all.
Yeah.
You weren't. You were hard for me to get my arms around. I will tell you that. But people always say, "How did you do it? What did you think?" And I didn't. I just reacted. I talked about youth hockey and coaching, and back when my son was 8 years old, part of that coaching training is I had to take basic first aid, and one of the things they taught you was the Heimlich maneuver, and my son's 37 years old now, so I'd never used it in 29 years, but I learned it back then, and you say that you didn't show the signs, the choke sign, that's the international sign, so that people know that someone's choking, but you didn't have to, Josh. When you turned around, your eyes were as big as golf balls, and you were screaming without any words. So, it had to be done. I was there. I'm sure if I wasn't there was someone else that would have done it. I happened to be there. I was the closest person. I grabbed you and I did it. And thinking back, I remember, the farther you get away from an emotional act like that, the more you remember about it. And I remember later, or maybe days later, that I was yelling at you to give it up, let it out, and
Let the demons out.
And when you finally did, you launched this surfboard-sized piece of beef.
Yeah.
And you said you bit into it. There was no bite marks on it. I think you were trying to swallow it whole. It was, a whole half a pound of beef in one piece. And the bread was still in the plate, so I knew that it went down whole. But it was emotional. It was a tough thing after the fact. When I did it, I didn't think about doing it. I just did it. But after the fact, it was very emotional about what if I failed? What if I couldn't do it? There was a lot. There was a lot that went into that, and you probably, I don't know if you realize, but it it took 2 days to get home. I did stay. Wasn't driving home that night. But when I got home and I opened my email after 2 days, there was a flutter of emails. Most of them from dudes, from people at School Dude, thanking me, and things like that, and telling me how much you meant to them. But the first email that came in was from a good friend of ours, Carsey Denning. And he said, thank you for saving my friend. You're a true hero. And I don't know, I never liked the title hero for me. I didn't look at it that way. And Carsey, I know you'll be listening to this, and I hope I can remember the response email, because I didn't respond to all the email that I got. I just emotionally couldn't do it. But I said, hero. I said, heroes to me are the people that put on a uniform every day and go out and they do their job with the uniform on. They're first responders. They're our military. They're overseas. They sacrifice for us. And I didn't see myself that way. I know heroes. I know them personally. My son's a firefighter in Watertown. And as people know, Watertown is where the Marathon bombers ended up. He was working that night and was there at the firefight. Someone like that's a hero. Another friend I know that was the cop at that firefight that jumped out of his cruiser and let it go on its own so that they could fire at the cruiser and not at everyone else. And then people that just are out there on the front lines every day that do it. Those people are heroes. I say if you're going to give me a title, I'll accept the title of lucky. And I just consider myself so lucky to have family. I've got 3 great kids, 4 phenomenal grandchildren now, and a fantastic wife. I couldn't ask for better. So I told Kasi that. I told him all that with a little less emotion, because I did it in an email. And I told him, so if you're going to give me a title, hang the title Lucky, not Hero, because I don't consider myself a hero. I'm lucky I was there to help.
And I guess I'm going to consider myself double lucky, because I was lucky that you were there and lucky that you just did what you did. And I don't know that I knew that. I'm sure that the Carsey email I had heard, I probably didn't realize all the reaction that people got that had it. I mean, I was I was kind of positioning my 500-pound question, or my 500-pound elephant in the room question, to be like 18 months later, any regrets, or would you do anything differently? But with that answer, you kind of got me on a loss for words about it,
And I just got to meet Chance for the first time today.
Yes,
he's a beautiful, booming, bouncing baby boy.
Booming is an understatement. He showed his crawling expertise, his standing expertise, and his lack of interest in eating after waking up from his nap.
Steve.
That's actually Yogi. So
Yogi.
You've got actually both the roosters eyeballing you. Steve from a distance and Yogi within striking range. Paul, thanks for taking the time to come out and sit with me under the tree. Let me share a couple of stories. You are an incredible human being. I look forward to hearing, seeing, and learning from you here more. Keep sharing the good word with the great people that take care of our kids in the schools day in and day out. And I really, I love you, and I appreciate everything. Most importantly, our friendship. I do hold the life-saving a little bit on a higher pedestal. And by the way, for any of you that are saying, "Well, he broke ribs," if you do it right, you're supposed to have broken ribs. If you get hit with friendly fire in a casino floor, at 4 o'clock in the morning by a friend, and you get broken ribs, that's doing it wrong, which that was done the time before I was down there, not by Paul, but by somebody else. So no hard feelings with the broken ribs, but keep doing what you're doing. I'm a better person knowing you the last 15 years. I look forward to many more with you, and I'm grateful that you got to come out with me today, and I pray that Yogi doesn't get you, because he's
moving in.
he's coming in.
I'll take him out. Tell him, lead with the left, because you'll never see the right coming, Yogi. You won't see it coming.
Yeah, so we didn't talk about Yogi in these episodes, but apparently Yogi is a rooster that is also becoming a jerk. Maybe you heard that Steve's popularity is picking up, but he is right up in the thick of things. But thanks, Paul. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, Josh. I appreciate it. And to you and all the great things you're doing here with Be Awesome and the things you do every day. I mean, there's a lot of people that really appreciate it.
Oh, that means a lot. Thank you. And that's going to do it for us here today from the Peach Tree with our rooster audience. Really appreciate everybody's comments, posts, shares, likes. If you like the podcast, wherever you're listening to it, would love to get your reviews, your stars. One star, 5 star, any stars. That's how the word gets out. This is an organic growth effort. The shirts are going to be getting pressed out in the next couple days to a week. I really appreciate everybody's patience. You can find me, email Josh at beawesome.com, BEAUSM, or you can go to my website, subscribe on the newsletter. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. That's where I do most of my work, on LinkedIn. If you want me to speak for you, I do nights, weekends, holidays. This is a second effort for me. So if you're accommodating with your time, I can be accommodating with mine. And just keep doing what you do, and always remember to do awesome. You got to be awesome. Have a great day. Signing off.